Class is now in session. I'm Professor Hockey, and today we'll be discussing some massive news coming out of the National Hockey League today. And this isn't just news that is affecting the San Jose Sharks, but is affecting every single team and just the league and potentially the future of the league as a whole, considering it could have pretty long-lasting effects, at least leading into the following season. So, of course, we now know that the NBA last night had a player test positive for the coronavirus, and so the NBA decided to at least suspend their season for the moment last night. The NHL announced that the games of that night would proceed as normal, but they would reconvene today to decide whether or not they would actually move forward with the games. Would it play without fans, or would it just be canceled as a whole? And the NHL announced today that they would be putting a pause onto this season, which is, as I said, some pretty big news, because when the season would resume is completely out of the hands of the NHL and is basically at the will of what happens with this worldwide pandemic here, the coronavirus. And the NHL has informed teams, at least this is a report, that they would like teams to be able to keep arena availability open until late July, but even then that would be a huge thing. Imagine if you have a playoff series, the Stanley Cup Finals, being played in late July. Especially the team that loses, as they get zero reward here for making it to the end. They come second place in a way. They lose in the Stanley Cup Finals, and then they only have a couple of weeks to actually have that off season, have that time off before they have to get right back on it. And then, of course, that pops up the question, when does the draft happen? Does the lottery still happen in the next couple of weeks? When does free agency open? How does this make things work in terms of contracts? I mean, take a look at players on expiring contracts that would normally expire July 1st. They could still very well be playing in the playoffs. What is Pietrangelo to do when his contract runs out July 1st, but his team, the St. Louis Blues, is, let's say, in the Western Conference Finals? Right? Does he still play for them at that point? Do the contracts get delayed? As I said, this has a lasting effect at least until the following year. And so it is quite the wonder what the NHL is going to be able to do here. If the season does resume, do they finish the regular season, or do they just take the teams that are currently in a playoff spot and allow them to join? At which point, what about the teams that are outside of a playoff spot, like the New York Islanders, who are only a single point behind the Columbus Blue Jackets, but have 2 games in hand? Is it that fair that because the schedule worked out in such a way that they have 2 less games played than the Blue Jackets, that they end up getting booted out of the playoffs? And then you'll say, well, you'll just sort it by points percentage. But then you take a look at a team like the Calgary Flames, who are basically just barely hanging on to a playoff spot, and luckily they have an extra game played than some teams on the outside looking in. Is it fair to then boot them out because you're bringing in a team who would actually have to win that 1 extra game to actually pass Calgary? So it is a very difficult situation for the NHL. I guess the Sharks picked the best year to not really make the playoffs, because of the fact that, well, it very well is up in the air of whether or not it will actually happen. But this is a huge deal here for the NHL. They're not the only league that has shut down. Not only the NBA either. The MLB has suspended, the baseball league has suspended all of whatever is going on with them. The MLS, which is the North American Soccer League, that is also suspended. So a lot of things happening around the world at the moment that are now affecting the NHL, and it'll certainly be interesting to keep an eye on what exactly is going to go on, because there doesn't seem to be a perfect solution at the moment for what you do. Go straight to the playoffs, finish out the regular season. Everything is going to have some sort of lasting effect, and maybe put a bit of an asterisk next to this season in the history books. As for myself, now that there doesn't seem to be any sort of Sharks games going on, as well as nothing really hockey related, I'm not entirely sure what I'll do. I might just be recapping some of what happened this season. Of course, the AHL and the CHL have also been canceled, so there's no San Jose Barracuda, there's no Sharks prospects playing, so it's definitely going to be a bit of a blackout here, sort of off-season-esque in a way for hockey content. Class dismissed.